All right, today I'm going to be taking you through the 45-degree hyperextension. You can do it two different ways. We can either do it with a band to bias our glutes, or we can do it without a band and just hold some plates and bias our hamstrings. Now I find with this movement, there's two things that are crucial. We get the position of the pad correct, and we place our feet correctly. Very often I'll see people have the pad either too low and their hips are hanging over the top of it, and it becomes more of a back extension and less glute, less hamstring, or they have the pad way too high up, and as they're hinging down, it's stuck on their stomach. Ideally, you want to have the top of your hip bone just barely hanging over the top of the pad. That way you're hinging perfectly with your hip just on the edge of the pad. Next, where we're positioning our feet. I'll see people sometimes moving their feet around, not having their feet planted, or they're really short, and as a result, maybe their heels are coming up and they're not actually planted on the back of the machine. So in that case, I would take a 25-pound plate or a block and put that underneath. That's gonna allow you to be in a better position and have better stability. And with better stability on this movement, which is crucial, you'll be able to lift more weight, you'll be able to keep yourself safe, and then you'll be able to get more out of it. Now, let's talk about execution. If you're doing a regular 45 hyper where you're just doing weight and you're not using a band, you can either get a barbell or an easy bar and load up a bunch of weight if you're really strong, like a guy I know, or you can take just some plates, one plate, two plates, a 25, and hold them in your hands. Both work, both are effective, and there's a place for you to start. Now, as we execute the movement, we want to make sure that we're having a good range of motion, but we're not going too far. Very often I'll see people come up and they overextend their back and they arch a bunch and they go into a bunch of back extension. And though this is an extension machine, and we are going to be using our low back to some degree, we don't want it to become completely a low back exercise. So for me, as you can see in the video here, I am stopping once my glutes are fully locked out, and I just stop there. I don't continue extending my back. Once my glutes are fully flexed and locked out, I stop. As I'm coming down and I'm going into the stretch position, I'm not going too far and going into too much flexion. I'm stopping a little bit short and kind of staying in this sweet spot throughout the entirety of the movement, and you can see that here in the video. Now, a key here with executing this is you want to be patient. From rep to rep, you don't want to be rushing, because when you rush, you're going to be at a greater risk for injury, you're not going to have as good of stability, and you're probably not going to be able to lift as much weight because shit gets thrown off when you rush. So take your time. Now, if we want to bias our glutes in this movement, we can use a band. This is going to make the movement hardest at the top when the band is most stretched, and your glutes have the best leverage in the top half of this movement, and it's gonna work them even harder. So if you wanna bias the glutes, if you wanna get a big, juicy rear, I would get a band. It's really easy to progress. All you need to do is add, maybe an additional small band when you wanna do more weight, or you can just make a knot in the band, make it a little bit tighter, and just gradually go a little bit tighter and have a little bit more tension from session to session. As far as the range of motion goes, I'm going through the same range of motion with the band as I am without it with the free weights. I'm just having a different resistance profile throughout the movement to bias different muscles. A really underrated part of executing this movement is where you're positioning your head and where your eyes are looking. If your head is up and you're looking way high up, you are going to likely go into more extension. And like I said, we don't want to be in too much extension. So I find what makes this movement more effective, what makes me be able to execute it better, is I'm actually tucking my chin. I'm going like this, hello microphone, and I tuck my chin down. And by doing so, I'm aligning myself in a more neutral position. If not, I'm in a little bit more flexion instead of extension. And as this being a back extension, you're typically gonna bias to a bit more low back extension anyways. So I find by fixing the head position, we're able to kind of get out of that extension. So if you do all these things, you execute the setup well, you execute the movement well, you're gonna get the most out of your 45 hyper. You're gonna get a big juicy butt or some strong hamstrings, but either way, execute it well and you will get a lot out of it.